Say what again? Say what again? I dare you. I double dare you.
I mean, do you think that God came down from heaven and stopped us?
Oh!
I said, goddamn.
If there's one movie that defines Gen X cool, it's Pulp Fiction.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Hands down. In fact, it's not just a great film, it's the film of our generation. And it is my favorite movie of all time. It is a cultural landscape that broke Hollywood in half and stitched it back together. Some people call it the coolest movie ever made. I call it the greatest movie of all time. Fuck Citizen Kane. And today, I'm going to prove it. There's a couple of reasons why it's so good, and in this review, we're going to ask why. Because on its face, if I describe this movie to you, it just sounds like a crime film or a series of unfortunate events. But it's not. It's amazing, and here's why. Let's start with the basics. It's a non-linear storyline. This non-linear fashion gives us a movie that at first could be really confusing because the scenes appear all out of order. But Tarantino's brilliance is that he manages to connect them all in meaningful ways. For example, the first scene in the diner with Pumpkin and Honey Bunny, played by the brilliant Tim Roth and the beautiful Amanda Plummer.
Everybody be cool, this is a robbery!
Any of you fucking pricks move! And I'll execute every motherfucking last one of you!
Sorry, couldn't help myself. And the couple are talking about the safest way to rob people, and then they suddenly rob the diner, and then the credits roll. We immediately jump to another scene with Jules and Vincent in the car. They have this really cool conversation about Vincent's trip to Amsterdam and what life was like in Europe. And it is completely disjointed
Royale with cheese.
from the first scene with Honey Bunny and Pumpkin. But by the end of the movie, all of these things have been woven together in a magical, beautiful, brilliant finale that on rewatching the movie again, it actually gets better and better. And this is part of the brilliance of this movie, is that it tells you a disjointed story and manages to keep you completely enthralled throughout the entire thing. Pulp Fiction didn't play by any of the set rules that Hollywood had been using for most of its existence. It pretty much laughed at the basic idea of how films are made. Before we give the credit to Tarantino for inventing nonlinear storytelling, let's pump the brakes. He didn't invent it, but what he did do was take decades of experiments and mash them into something stylish, fun, and insanely watchable and rewatchable. You can trace the DNA of Pulp Fiction back to a movie like Citizen Kane, which came out in 1941, which was a movie that broke many of the basic ways that Hollywood worked and how you filmed a movie. Citizen Kane told the story out of order through different flashbacks. Then in the 1950s, we got Stanley Kubrick's The Killing, which told a heist out of sequence from different characters' point of views. That one, by the way, is practically a direct ancestor of Reservoir Dogs. So Tarantino didn't come out of nowhere. He is standing on the shoulders of giants, of his peers, of people that he spent all of his time in that video store watching. He took what came before and he made it leaps and bounds better. But here's the difference. Those earlier movies felt like experiments. The kind of stuff you study in film school, the stuff you're trying to figure out. Pulp Fiction took it all and made it cool. It made it into pop culture. Now we have a movie where the hitman's redemption arc, a boxer's betrayal, and a gangster's wife overdosing on bad drugs are all told out of order, but somehow the puzzle pieces fit. Pulp Fiction is a film that is greater than the sum of its parts. Tarantino just doesn't shuffle them all together for, the sake of being clevers. He structures it in a way that keeps you hooked and gives you payoffs on the exact moment when you're least expecting them. It's not random, it's rhythm. The dialogue. Tarantino's dialogue is out of this world, and it's actually a reflection of Gen X themselves and the way we were raised. Look, we were latchkey kids. TV was our frickin' babysitter, and as a result, we had a different style of speech and language. We had a completely different way of interacting than the boomers did. We actually spoke in memes before it was a thing. I remember going to school and having these conversations with friends about what we'd seen last night or on Saturday morning cartoons. And our teachers couldn't follow the conversation because they hadn't seen the show. They had no point of reference. And Tarantino managed to turn that into dialogue in his films. And it was a dialogue that we understood. It was like a secret language for our generation. And that's what hooked us in. Gen Xers were not looking for cookie cutter action heroes. We wanted characters who sounded like us, who were messy, who argued about nothing, and somehow made it about everything. Pulp Fiction is infinitely quotable. And to this day, I can walk into a room and get a laugh by saying, hey, you ever give another man a foot massage? One of Tarantino's greatest tricks is how he uses dialogues as definition, as action.
Gave her a foot massage. Foot massage. That's a damn shame.
Jules and Vincent driving to work. On the surface, it's just two friends talking about McDonald's in Europe and movie theaters. Regular everyday stuff, right? It's a conversation you could imagine having with your own buddies. That's exactly the point. It's disarming. You let your guard down because nothing about it feels like movie dialogue. It's not dramatic or shocking or anything in that way. It's just regular people talking. Then you realize these guys are hitmen on their way to kill somebody, and your whole perspective shifts. You look back and try to understand where this started.
Maybe your method of massage differs from mine.
Would you give a guy a foot massage?
And this is genius. The conversation is the action. It builds character, tension, and mood before a single bullet is fired. By the time they reach the apartment, you're not just waiting for the violence, you're invested in who these guys are. Before Brad gets shot, all of the action has already taken place in Jules' speech. His speech is the action sequence. The
You remember your business partner, Marcellus Wallace, don't you, Brett?
gunshots? That's pretty much just confirmation of the action we just saw.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
And Tarantino pulls this trick all throughout the movies. Conversations about burgers, watches, about foot massages, they're not just filler. They're a way of making the audience lean in, laugh, and relate. Right before he blindsides us with some fucking crazy shit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Look, most directors use expedition dumps or montages to set the stage. But Tarantino, he slows down. He trusts his dialogue to be the stage. Iconic characters. Every character in Pulp Fiction has their own hero's journey. They're all iconic and infinitely quotable. Every single character is a main character that could carry their own movie. I could make a whole ass movie about Winston Wolfe, if I'm being really honest, and he was in the movie for all of 5 minutes. Jules, well, he's got one of the coolest redemption arcs I've ever seen in a film. Think about it. He's a hitman who suddenly believes in divine intervention, who decides maybe his whole life has been heading toward change. You could actually build an entire film around that iconic moment and what he does afterwards. And Vincent is the opposite. Vincent is a downfall arc because he's slick, he's funny, he's charming, but he's reckless. He's got a drug problem. He's completely careless. He's a man at the end of his career, at the end of his life. And in Tarantino's world, obviously that's going to get you killed. But we could literally start his story from Europe. What he does there, what's the consequences? Why did he come home? There's so many questions that we can ask. Again, we could make a whole movie just on Vincent, and we end it with him sitting on that toilet with that dead look on his face. And Butch, holy shit. The man who refuses to throw a fight, even when it means putting his own life in danger, even when it means, financial ruin. And somehow he becomes a legend. And it's not an accident. Tarantino makes his story about betrayal, survival, and even the katana scene, something that could stand as a whole feature film. We could expand it all out into something amazing. Even Mia Wallace, who barely has time on the screen compared to the others, she shows up, she dances, she nearly overdoses, and somehow she's a legend. It's not an accident. Tarantino makes every character on screen unforgettable. And that's his genius. These people are unpredictable. They don't feel like characters. They feel like people you might bump into, people you might know, your homegirl, your homeboy. They're dangerous and magnetic all at once. And that's Gen X vibe all in a nutshell. We're not polished. We're not perfect fucking heroes. In fact, we're pretty messy and wild as hell. And those characters all reflect us. Tarantino shows just enough of these characters to make us fill in the blanks with our own imaginations. We make these characters more real because he teased just enough of them that we're curious and we want to know more. And when you put all these amazing arcs together, the redemption, the downfall, honor, chaos, you get a cultural event that is one of the greatest films of all time. But what about the violence? And this is something that my mom, my daughter, most of the millennials I know, and Gen Z just really don't understand about Tarantino. It is the elephant in the room. The film is violent as hell. Pulp Fiction is actually, and you know what? As I watch this movie, every single time, I can't stop laughing. From the moment they shoot Brad, to the car scene with Marvin, to Butch cutting Zed down with the fucking katana, I laugh my ass off. Here's the thing. Gen X, we grew up watching TV, so violence and sex on screen was nothing new to us. The 80s were not subtle. Our action heroes were Arnold Schwarzenegger mowing people down in Predator. I mean, like, I've watched Predator like 20 times. Look, we're used to our action heroes mowing people down, you know, with machine guns. Our Saturday morning cartoons had villains vaporizing people, and late night cable had every kind of sleaze you could imagine. So when Tarantino came around with his mix of brutality and humor, it didn't shock us. It felt like home. It felt completely natural. Look, take Marvin getting his head shot off in the back seat. It's messy. And me and my friends, we laughed our asses off because it's not just violence. It's awkward. It's absurd. It's so sudden that you can't help but crack up. It's like a holy fuck moment. And that's Tarantino's cocktail. 1 minute, you're double over laughing. The next, you're covering your eyes because it's horrifying and hilarious, all in the same breath. And that's why Gen X love this movie. We've been raised on a steady diet of good guy, bad guy stories. Life is sometimes a tragedy. It's sometimes funny. Sometimes comedy is cruel. Real life can be a car ride that ends in blood and panic. We've all been there. And weirdly, that honesty resonates with people. Tarantino doesn't separate out the tones. He smashes them all together. Casual banter about fast food and then bang, guns. Look, the dance with Vincent and Mia felt like foreplay, followed by an overdose that feels like death. It's a whiplash, but it's also so real. You know what the problem with movies nowadays is? They're constantly going back for reshoots. They're constantly going and focus grouping the movie. But that doesn't really make a great movie. Sometimes movies are great because of their mistakes. Movies are great because they don't have to be polished. If any modern director wants to take anything from Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, is that films don't have to be so polished. We don't want fake moral lessons. We want something dangerous, something unpredictable, something that can make you laugh and cringe at the same time. And Pulp Fiction gave us exactly that. Gen X upbringing with action films, MTV, late nights, and all the other crap we dealt with pretty much defines who we are. And that takes us to the last great part of Pulp Fiction, which is the frickin' soundtrack. Pulp Fiction changed the way that movie soundtracks were used. It used to be backdrop, what was going on in the background. But let's just be honest, Son of a Preacher Man is walk-on music, right? The songs were characters in the movie. They help propel the story forward. Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon is Mia Wallace's song. These songs help define the action. They shape the emotional temperature of the film. And when you were Gen X in the 90s, I had Pulp Fiction on repeat constantly in my Walkman, my really crappy CD player with bass boosts. Gen X was a generation raised on MTV, raised on music videos. We were raised on the idea that a song could tell a story as much as a script. And Tarantino tapped into that perfectly. He knew a well-placed track could hit you harder than any dialogue and could take any scene from good to iconic. And here's the kicker. And decades later, The opening strum or the opening line of a song takes us back to that film. That's why we're still talking about it, because obviously, you're not going to watch Pulp Fiction every day, but a lot of this music is still around. And when you hear it, you think back to this film. It's amazing how it works. At the end of the day, Pulp Fiction is Gen X's crown jewel. It's proof that movies can be funny, dangerous, smart, and completely unpredictable all at once. Look, it's been 30, 40 years, and I'm still quoting it. I have friends that we still debate it. And that's why it's not just my favorite movie. It's the greatest movie of all time. And let's just be honest. Pulp Fiction changed the way cinema was made. And that goes for TV and movies, because without Pulp Fiction, there would be no Breaking Bad. There would be no Fight Club. There would be no wave of dialogue-driven indie films smashing into the mainstream. The movie didn't just win at Cannes, it rewrote the playbook of what cinema could be. Anyway, that's my rant for today. Tell me what you think about Pulp Fiction in the description. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great one.